Hi, I'm Martiens Barnard, Marketing Actuary for Momentum Investments. And today I want to talk about behavioral finance. So over the last few years, we've got a department that we studied how people behave towards money and in terms of their investments, run by Paul Nixon, our head of behavioral finance. And we've learned a few fascinating things over this period of time. And to start off, why do we study people's behavior in terms of finance? Because you would think money is something that's rational. People make rational decisions in terms of money, but in actual fact, it's not the case. Money is very emotive. People make decisions, and these decisions are definitely not always rational. And the first study that was done was a study that looked at switchers on the Momentum Wealth platform. Specifically, we looked at the tax that people pay because of the switches that they make on their investments, which is their decisions. And we call this tax a behavioral tax. And in looking at all the taxes, these behavioral taxes have been paid over the last few years, the amounts are absolutely staggering, which tells us that people are making the wrong decisions. And in many cases, these decisions are driven by fear and by greed. And digging deeper into these decisions that investors make, the behavioral department has actually dug into it and thrown a lot of data into machine learning algorithms, and they've used artificial intelligence to understand, if we look at the type of switches that's done, what type of switches are actually occurring, because you can almost, put them into different buckets, if I can call it that. And we've called these buckets or groupings of similar type of switches, we've called these groupings of investors archetypes. Now, these archetypes, which are called the avoiders, the assertive investors, the anxious investors, and the market timers, show very different behavioral patterns, where the avoiders, in actual fact, actually really don't take on any risk. They just, stay with very conservative investors. And of course, when they make switches, the switches are from conservative investments to other conservative investments. And that basically leads to, not these big type of swings because of these switches. On the other hand, you get anxious investors. And what happens with the anxious investors is when market starts to fall, they're of course driven by the emotion of fear, which leads them to switch to more conservative investors, which in many cases, leads to them missing out on any market recoveries. Then on the other hand, you've got the assertive investors. They're actually making these investment decisions when markets are running. In most cases, they're trying to switch into better performing investments because they might see that their investment is doing fine, but there's different investments doing better. And of course, they miss the boat in most of these circumstances or instances. And their switch is actually not to their advantage, because once they switch to something that has performed, that performance in many cases has already, in aggregate, has its past performance, and they don't benefit from that. And then lastly, you get the sort of worst of all switchers. They are called the market timers. They actually switch when markets are falling and when markets are performing well, and in many cases they get the worst of both of the situations. Now that's one of the studies that we've done. It's very fascinating, and you can teach investors a lot about themselves, and financial advisors to help the certain type of investors to coach them beforehand, that they don't make these type of decisions when markets are falling or when markets are performing well. Another type of behavioral study that was done is something that we've done with a South African university, which is called the Money Fingerprint. And here we've sent out surveys to about 800 clients or custom or individuals. That gives us a representation of the Momentum client base. And we asked them a lot of questions about their financial circumstances, how do they feel about money, etc., etc. And through the working with the university, we managed to narrow this down to a very smaller set of questions. From these set of questions, we can really determine a lot about how people feel about money. And if we split it into three sections, what is the feeling towards risk? Can they tolerate risk when markets are fluctuating? How do they feel about it? What's their perception about risk? And also, how future thinking or present thinking are they in terms of money? There was an experiment about it children given a marshmallow, and the question was asked, can you leave this marshmallow on the table for an extensive period of time, a few minutes, which is quite a long period for kids. And, you could see how they differ in terms of, if I leave this marshmallow on the table, I'll get two, or would I rather take it now and get the utility from it and eat this marshmallow right away? And through this money fingerprint, we can also determine from clients, how do you feel about money? Are you willing to put it away, give it time, give it the opportunity to grow, or are you going to spend it right now and today? And lastly, in the money fingerprint, we get a better understanding of how do you feel about newer type of investments, cryptocurrencies. Is that your thing, or are you more a traditional type of investor? So that when you understand this better, you can make better investment decisions. And I think specifically for couples, couples in many instances have very different personalities in terms of money. Some, you just see it all around. And I think a good example to use was the other day, Paul spoke about this couple that went overseas, and the woman is very, focused in the present. She likes to get the experience. But at the same point in time, her husband is very focused on, let's keep within the budget. And it's, getting these, understanding that the one is maybe an outlier to the left, the one is maybe an outlier to the right. And getting that middle ground can help couples, gain a better understanding of one another's financial personalities and get to a plan that can work for both of them to make sure that they can reach their financial success.